Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
What's going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter, and Facebook if you're following along live with us. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. If you listen to this thing podcast version, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, all sorts of ways for you to find this show. Today is Friday, May the 19th. It is Black Eyed Susan Friday down at Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore. Tomorrow is the Preakness. It's the second jewel in racing's North America's Triple Crown anyways, and we'll find out if Always Dreaming can secure that second jewel of racing's Triple Crown. But before we get into that, just give you a little bit of a heads up what to expect today. We'll go over a couple of stakes races that'll be run this afternoon, one of them being a sprint for 3-year-old fillies and one of them being sort of the Kentucky Oaks counterpart, that being the Black Eyed Susan 3-year-old fillies, 1 1/8 down at Old Hilltop. And then we'll also take a look, obviously, at the Preakness Stakes, as well as another race tomorrow afternoon, that being the Dixie, going 1 16th on the turf. But before we get to that, we're not going to bury the lead anymore. The Preakness is what everyone wants to talk about and find out if Always Dreaming can get the job done. Let's take a look first and foremost at the field with my odds as far as what I think is fair value on these horses on the far right-hand side. If you're new to this thing, I'm going to bring it right down in post position order for you. Multiplier, a new face in this race, 24-1. Cloud Computing, 6-1. Hence, 24-1. Always Dreaming, 5-2. Classic Empire, 7-2. Gunnevera, 13-1. Term of Art, 49-1. Senior Investment, 49-1. Looking at Lee, 12-1. And Conquest Mo Money, 12-1. If you've been living under a rock and didn't know this, Always Dreaming won the Kentucky Derby 2 weeks ago. And if you haven't seen or heard the call, here's Travis Stone from the top of the lane.
War Cry is there on the outside. McCracken swings wide. Classic Empire does too. And looking at Lee, cut the corner off the turn. They're racing for the final furlong. Always Dreaming, digging down deep on a 2-length lead. Looking at Lee, wanders off the rail. Now with 3 lengths to make up and a 16th to go. But Always Dreaming is digging down, and Always Dreaming is holding on. Looking at Lee, can't catch Always Dreaming, who's the 143rd winner of the Kentucky Derby.
A very deserving winner of the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby, Always Dreaming, Todd Pletcher. Now we get into the interesting thing, and you've heard it all for the past 2 weeks, really. Pletcher on 2 weeks, not something he normally does, usually enjoys giving his horses a little bit of time to recover and get ready and get right for their next race. You don't have that luxury in a scenario like this where you're going to wheel them back and try to, if you're going for the Triple Crown, which obviously they will tomorrow afternoon, they're going to try to get the second jewel. Perhaps it's a little overblown just because this is a bit of an anomaly. This isn't a typical 2-week turnaround for a Todd Pletcher horse. Circumstances, it's the only reason that this horse is going to run in 2 weeks. He is far and away, in my opinion, the most likely winner. Again, with the odds, I made him 5-2. He's going to be much, much shorter than that. I think he may be in the vicinity of 3-5. He's your 4-5 morning line favorite. Again, I think he deserves all of it. And from a race shape standpoint, it's going to be fascinating to find out what John Velasquez does aboard Always Dreaming. He's got let's say, an interesting post position with post position 4, simply because to his outside you have arguably his main competition, Classic Empire. And we can talk about Classic Empire a little bit, where he had such a rough trip in the Kentucky Derby, sideswiped out of the gate by Irish War Cry. He's in amongst horses over a sloppy track, and he's out in the middle of the racetrack. And I think that's an important piece to bring up, because I don't happen to be of the group that believes that the inside was just absolute gold and that's where you needed to be. But if you are of that sort of thought process, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to, that's your opinion. And we'll find out as more and more horses come out of that race. If you believe inside was the place to be, Classic Empire was not there. He was about as far away from the rail as you possibly could be, and he still put in a little bit of a bid. He flattened out down the lane. It makes too much sense to think that, you know what, he's going to rebound in a big, big way here tomorrow afternoon in the Preakness. I think he is a legitimate contender. I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever if he does win this race. He just seems a little uninteresting to me, and I think everyone is going to be looking at it saying the trip in the Derby. And if you reverse the trips with him and Always Dreaming, perhaps Classic Empire is the one that wins the Kentucky Derby. I just think he's going to be an underlaid price. I think he may be in that 2-1, 5-2 range. I made him 7-2. I don't think I get that number on a win end as far as Classic Empire is concerned. Let's talk about the horse that I actually picked in this race, and what I will give an air quotes live long shot to because he's 12-1 in the morning line. I'm not sure he will go off at 12-1. I think he comes down a little bit in that 8-9-1 range. That is the number 2 Cloud Computing for Chad Brown and Javier Castellano, Clarovich Farm. We're going to take a look at his run in the Gotham. This was 2 starts back, not his most recent run in the Wood. He's in the red cap and the white sleeves. He's in between horses, and at this point, J-Boy Zecco has taken over, and he's going to go on with this thing. But keep in mind, there were a lot of things working against Cloud Computing. This was his first time going 2 turns. He had just broken his maiden in his first lifetime start. This was lifetime start number 2. And he's not embarrassed. You see that J-Boy Zecco, I understand he's geared down, but he's not really getting away from Cloud Computing. Cloud Computing comes back in his most recent start, the Wood Memorial, the grade 2 up at Aqueduct. And if you believe that speed was advantageous and inside was advantageous, Cloud Computing was in neither one of those positions. He was stuck mid-pack and out in the middle of the racetrack because he did break a bit slowly, and that's a bit of a concern tomorrow afternoon. But the good thing for this horse, you get Javier Castellano. That's never, ever a bad thing. I was stunned at some of the things that some people were commenting on YouTube on our Out of the Gate show last night, saying, Castellano, what's he ever done? Well, Castellano might be the best jockey we've seen in the past 5-10 years. So I think you could do much worse than have Javier on the horse that you like in a big event. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of trip he works out because you have Multiplier to the inside, not really going to show much gas. You have Hence, who is a confirmed 1-run closer, but then you have Always Dreaming and Classic Empire. We also have to touch on the horse that I think is the key to the entire Preakness, and there's the far outside runner. And fellas, if we could take a look at the odds one more time, we'll run through the overall field, 1 through 10. The outside runner, Conquest Mo Money, in my opinion, is the key to this race because if he goes, and I believe the only way he can win the Preakness is by trying to wire this field. If he goes, now John Velasquez needs to work something out similar to what he did in the Kentucky Derby. Are you going to send this horse to establish some position and then try to work out a trip? Or are you going to just say, you know what, we are the best horse, we're going to go on with it? If that's the case and Conquest Mo Money relinquishes the lead and allows Always Dreaming to go, boy, is he going to be tough to run down. We know what Always Dreaming is capable of doing when he's outright on the lead. We also know what he's capable of doing sitting off of a target. In a perfect world, if you are someone like myself that likes Cloud Computing, you're hopeful that Always Dreaming breaks. You're hopeful that Conquest Mo Money is sent right to the front. You're also hopeful that Classic Empire is much more forwardly ridden, and I think Dan Illman and Mike Beer brought up a very, very good point. You go back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, his best race to date, he was forwardly placed. He was pressing the pace throughout. In a perfect world, again, if you're someone like myself, and I understand anyone that says Cloud Computing, there's too many things going against him. He's too lightly raced, he doesn't have enough seasoning, he's not fast enough right now, X, Y, and Z. If you are in my shoes, you're hopeful that those 3 horses line up on the front end and try to throw it down, and it becomes a horse race early on through the opening half mile, the opening 3/4 of a mile, and Javier works out a trip just in behind them and waits and waits and waits, and then as they start to sort of burn one another off, Javier makes a move turning for home. We'll find out if he's good enough. I think the trip could work out for Cloud Computing. Again, he is my live long shot, air quotes. He's also my pick in the Preakness Stakes, the second jewel in racing's Triple Crown. Always Dreaming, the deserving favorite. I think he is the most likely winner, but the horse that I'm picking and hopefully betting, price pending, is the number 2 Cloud Computing for Chad Brown and Javier Castellano. We're going to take a break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we're going to dive right in to this afternoon, Friday afternoon's featured event down at Pimlico Racecourse. It is for the 3-year-old fillies. It's the Black Eyed Susan. Stay with us.
DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Ladies and gentlemen of Cincinnati, clear your dance cards, because this is an invitation from Jack. Jack says the best business to get into is monkey business. Jack says once in a lifetime can happen every night. Damn the torpedoes and tomorrow morning. Prepare to live it up, live it loud, and relive it all over late night chilly 3-way. Because Cincinnati, this is really happening.
California Chrome, straight and strong, absolutely sensational. sensational California Chrome. California Chrome. To California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Shawin, the winner of the Gun Handicap.
This horse is the complete package. He's won from 7 furlongs to 1.1 miles. He's won on dual surfaces. He's won with and without Lasix. And he's traveled around the world and brought his A game with him.
He showed that he was a very top-class dirt horse.
Balance is key, and he was just perfectly proportioned. I think that's what made him so athletic and so efficient on the track.
Ten after 12 on the East Coast, 10 after 9 on the West Coast. The Matt Bernier Show on DRF TV. You can also follow along social media, Twitter and Facebook. Thank you for those of you that are following along with us there. And again, if you check the podcast out, you've got a bunch of ways, and I'll dive into those later on if you're checking this thing out after we're done here on Friday. Speaking of Friday, if you are following along live, this show will be a little bit timely, same as far as the show 2 weeks ago, where we went over races like the Kentucky Oaks and the 8 Bells. Well, guess what? Today, we're going to go over the main event, and we'll also go over another race after we get back from break. But let's start off with the Black-Eyed Susan. It is for 3-year-old fillies, 1 1/8 miles on the main track. Let's take a look at this field if we could. This, for me, for my money, is the most fascinating betting race of the weekend. It will be so interesting to see who ultimately goes off favored. And for those of you following along or using some sort of visual, if it's on YouTube or video.drf.com, you can see with my odds over on the right-hand side, I throw a dart. I have no idea who the most likely winner in this race is. We're going to go right through post position order. The number 1 is Shimmering Aspen, 7-1. Tappa Tappa Tappa, 7-1. Dancing Rag, 16-1. Full House, 24-1. Lights of Medina, 24-1. Corporate Queen, 16-1. Moana, 7-1. Torrent, 8-1. As we turn the page to 9 through 11, Summer Luck, 7-1. Actress, 8-1. Yorkie Poo Princess, 16-1. I don't have a horse any shorter than 7-1. This is pretty clearly a race that I don't have a super strong opinion in. I think you can go 15 different ways in an 11-horse field. It's going to be fascinating from a pace standpoint to see how things shake down. There's a scenario in which the pace heats up big time up front, where you've got horses just drawn to the inside. Shimmering Aspen stretching out from 7/8 of a mile. She's been very impressive visually. You also have Tappa Tappa Tappa, the number 2 horse, who, when she's at her best, I think she's outright on the lead. Doesn't mean she has to go, but I do think when she's firing her A game, it's when she's allowed to go out to the front. If those two hook up, you have a couple other horses that figure to be not that far out of it, whether it's a horse like Full House, who we've seen with big speed in the past, and her only victory to date in gate-to-wire fashion. Moana, I don't think is going to be too far out of it for Todd Pletcher. There's a scenario where the pace could heat up, and maybe it sets up for a horse coming from off of it. I'm going to offer you the counter-argument to that, though. There's a scenario where I think they're going to look at it and say Shimmering Aspen is a stretch-out sprinter. We don't think she can go the distance. By the way, she's also getting a tremendous class hike. Maybe not as far as buyers are concerned right now, but this is clearly going to be the best field she's faced in her short campaign thus far. If they allow her to go and Tappa 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 sits off, now maybe all of a sudden that takes Tappa 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 out of her best game, which would be outright on the lead. Then all of a sudden Full House, maybe she's not fast enough to make the front. There's a scenario in which maybe they just allow Shimmering Aspen to go out there all on her lonesome and set some reasonable fractions. It wasn't that long ago that we saw in this very race a few years back, Dale Romans and Keen Pauline, where it looked on paper like there was going to be some speed, and you had a lightly raced horse and you didn't know maybe if she was good enough, X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what? She gets out there, she's allowed to dictate a rather soft pace, and she makes the entire field pay at a pretty nice mutual. I think there's an outside chance that that could happen this afternoon. We'll find out. I think in this race, again, I don't have a super strong opinion. I like Shimmering Aspen, and you can take a look. Illman and I did a pick 4 video for this afternoon. It's up on video.drf.com if you want to take a look and see what our tickets look like. I don't have a super strong opinion, but there is a horse in here that I've kind of kept my eye on all winter, and her name is Torrent. And we're going to take a look at Torrent's most recent race. This was in the Fantasy Stakes. She is in the blue and black silks out there on the far outside. She just got fanned about 15 paths off the rail. A little bit of an exaggeration. She was about 8 or 9 paths off the rail. But you see that she just kind of chugs along. She's never going to threaten. But you see, you got Chanel's Legacy out there. Ever So Clever came from off the pace. You also have Vexatious. This was one of these sort of bob and weave trips. I like the fact that Torrent stayed on. And I also like the fact that you can look at the fantasy and say, you know what, we've had a couple of pretty nice horses come out of that race and perform relatively well. You had Vexatious, who came back to run well, closing into some hot fractions in the Kentucky Oaks, and I know it was over a wet track. But you also have Benner Island, who finished behind Torrent in the fantasy, come back to run very well and win in the 8 bells, going a little bit shorter on Kentucky Oaks Day. So I don't know that maybe this horse, Torrent, is as bad as she looks on paper. I think she was just a little bit green. And when we went over this race, it is the Formulator Race of the Day. You can get free Formulator past performances over on the Race of the Day page on video.drf.com and drf.com. You know, I made the sort of analogy to looking at Lee, where I feel like it's taken some time for this horse to figure out what she's supposed to be doing. If you look at some of her earlier races, she resents the whip, she flashes her tail, she's keen, she's pulling early on. That was the most relaxed she's ever been in her entire career, and she was even still a little bit geared up going into the first turn, but she did switch off nicely down the backside, and then you saw that little bit of a run she stayed on late. I think the distance is going to be beneficial for her, getting out to 1 1/8 from 1 1/16. I think second start off the bench for Ron Moquette. I think this could be a big weekend for Ron Moquette. He saddles Whitmore tomorrow afternoon. He's their sort of big shooter in this entire weekend down at Pimlico. But I just look at Torrent and say, you know what? She's an interesting runner, and I would feel kind of silly because she's going to be a big number. I believe she's 15 to 1 in the morning line. I have her 8 to 1. Fellas, let's take a look at my odds one more time in the entire field. I'll run through those folks just listening in post position order one more time. I think I would feel like a bit of a boob if Torrent went out there and paid $30, $32, and I didn't have a nickel on her, and I've liked her for some time. In post position order, Shimmering Aspen 7 to 1, Tappa 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 7 to 1, Dancing Rag 16 to 1, Full House 24 to 1, Lights of Medina 24 to 1, Corporate Queen 16 to 1, Moana 7 to 1, Torrent 8 to 1, Summer Luck 7 to 1, Actress 8 to 1, Yorkie Poo Princess 16 to 1. Summer Luck has all the sort of built-in excuses, being against the grain of the track in a couple of these races, didn't get the pace that she needed to run at coming from the back of the pack. This is a fascinating race. I don't know that we have any superstars. If there's one horse that could blossom into something really, really big, I do believe it is Moana for Pletcher. She looked very professional breaking her maiden most recently down at Keeneland. The gallop out was the thing that kind of caught my eye. It gives off the impression to me anyway that she's going to want as much distance as possible. And I wonder if today's not the day for her to really have her coming out party. I wonder if she's one you kind of keep an eye on and you circle, throw in your DRF stable mail, and maybe for a race like the Alabama when we get up to Saratoga at 1 1/4, 3-year-old restricted fillies. Maybe that's the kind of race. If it's not this afternoon, and it's entirely possible it could be this afternoon, but if she doesn't blossom just now, maybe she needs a little bit more time, a little bit more seasoning, maybe a race with some more distance like the Alabama would fit Moana very well. The Black Eyed Susan, phenomenal betting race, part of a pick 4. I believe it also kicks off another pick 4 sequence. So you've got multi-race wagers all over the place down at Pimlico this weekend, both today, Friday, and tomorrow, Saturday. We're going to take a break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we're going to give you 2 more races to take a look at. One today, the Miss Preakness, one tomorrow, the Dixie on the Turf. Stay with us, the Matt Bernier Show.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away, of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front.
Make NyraBets your home for online horse racing and betting. Use NyraBets to bet on live horse racing from around the world. Bet from anywhere, anytime using your computer or mobile device. Earn valuable reward points on bets. Play in our exclusive promotions and earn cash rebates. Sign up at NyraBets.com and start earning your sign-up bonus today. NyraBets, racing's best play. Sign up to NyraBets and get a $200 bonus. NyraBets, racing's best play.
Texas Red, second best, and here is one talented colt named Speedster.
I would say Speedster is maybe one of the most exciting horses that I've trained. He was a grandson of Gone West. Another horse that I had trained named Elusive Quality from that line was a world record holder at Belmont Park. Speedster showed some of that same speed. When you'd ask him the question, you know, he could answer.
One talented colt named Speedster.
Looks like you came in second. Those bets you made this afternoon were all backed by TVG's money back special. Your horse may not have won, but Eddie, we got your back.
Mike Smith.
Well, gotta run. Sorry about the mess.
Sign up now and get a $100 bonus. Plus, all players get money back if their Derby horse finishes second or third. TVG, your best bet.
How do you get out of here?
12:20 on the East, 9:20 on the West. The Matt Bernier Show on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com. And thanks to those of you following along live with us on social media, whether it is Twitter or Facebook. Rob here on Facebook talking about chasing Summer Luck one more time because she has excuses. Not the right running style for Gulfstream Park. I can entirely understand that. She's one of the logical contenders in this race this afternoon. I would just suggest don't take too short a price on her, and I do wonder if she's going to take some money in here. Let's move on to two races coming up this weekend. This entire show is Pimlico based. One of them is going to be this afternoon. One of them is going to be tomorrow afternoon. Let's take a look, and this is pre-changes or anything like that, and who knows, maybe there will be changes still to come. But let's start off with another just tremendous betting race, depending on how you want to look at it. This is the Miss Preakness Stakes. This is 3/4 of a mile on the main track for 3-year-old fillies. This is an overflow field. There are 14 in the body. There is one on the also eligible list at this point in the game. Maybe there's been a scratch that I am unaware of at this point. And if there is, so be it. Fire away. Talk to me on Twitter if you want, at Bernier_Matt. But let's go through the field. Right in post position order. Our Angel Caitlin, 12-1. My Mischief, 32-1. Stormy Embrace, 32-1. Crab Cakes. I mean, Crab Cakes is just, you want to talk about the ultimate hunch play. Crab Cakes, 24-1. Our Majesty, 6-1. Vertical Oak, 9-1. Bodie's Dream, 16-1. Nonabella, 16-1 as we turn the page to numbers 9 through 15. 9 is Discreet Deceit, 49-1. Too Much Tip, 10-1. A Stroll in the Park, 10-1. Pretty City Dancer, 6-1. Who is the Lady, 49-1. And Deer Valley, 49-1. Again, I have Shackleford's Lady listed as an also eligible. If there is a change, obviously my numbers will need to change a little bit as far as the value is concerned. This was an interesting race, and Illman brought it up when we went over the pick 4 sequence earlier in the week. And again, you can find that video over on video.drf.com. It seems like the Miss Preakness always has a scorching pace signed on early. This year's race doesn't look any different. It looks like there's a lot of gas. And I think it's going to set up for a horse that I have made it clear, abundantly clear on this show and in other videos that we've done. I'm not a big fan of hers, mainly because she doesn't seem very professional to me, and she hasn't put it all together. I do think Pretty City Dancer, though, is the one that is going to get the sort of race shape and the race flow that she needs. I'm calling her the most likely winner, and she is my pick in this spot. Now, you also have to keep in mind, I'm calling her the most likely winner. 6-1 is not some sort of ringing endorsement for a horse. I mean, that translates out to about 14%. So it's not like I have a strong conviction that she's the one. I do like her. I think this is the spot, though. You know, and I say that. I'm not a huge fan of this filly, but I think this is the spot where she's going to get the pace that she needs to run at. You're going to turn her back to 3/4 of a mile. You go back and watch that 8 Bells. She was a little bit slow out of the gate 2 weeks ago. I don't think she handled the racetrack at all. And if you believe, and I do believe this for Friday, I don't necessarily believe it for the Kentucky Derby, but I believe it for Friday, that inside is where you want it to be. I think that's why Javier Castellano rode Benner Island the way that he did. Get her out of the gate, get to the front, and also get down to the inside. Union Strike, who missed on the photo finish, unfortunately, in there, she rode the rail the entire way before tipping out, coming down the lane. This horse, Pretty City Dancer, was just hung wider than wide throughout. I don't think she handled the slop. And she was probably against the grain, even with the big pace signed on in there. I think this is a much more advantageous situation for her. Again, I made her 6-1 and the most likely winner. I know it's not a ringing endorsement from a price standpoint, but I do think she gets the best of it this afternoon. Give me Pretty City Dancer in Friday's Miss Preakness Stakes. Let's move on to Saturday. For those of you that missed out on the Friday action with this show, fear not, we have another show or another race for you to dissect and listen to for tomorrow. And let's talk about it. It is the Dixie Stakes. It's always a good race. It is going to be the race right before the Preakness Stakes tomorrow afternoon. Let's take a look at that field if we could. We have a field of 10 signed on at the moment. And I think there are a couple of horses that everyone is going to look at and say, you know what, they are strictly the horses to beat. We're going to take them right in post position order. The number 1 is Security Risk, 12-1 with Florent Giroux. The number 2 is World Approval, Julian Leperoux, 3-1. 3 is Top of Mind, Victor Carrasco, 49-1. Projected, Joel Rosario, 7-2. One Mean Man, Corey Lanery, 49-1. Talk Show Man, Trevor McCarthy, 99-1. Black Type, Jose Ortiz, 4-1. Catapult, Javier Castellano, 13-1. Conquest Typhoon, I believe, has Mike Smith aboard at 16-1. And Ring Weekend on the far outside is 12-1 with John Velasquez. Johnny V going to be looking to have the natural double going into the Preakness Stakes with Always Dreaming. This is a very, very interesting race. I do think sort of the quality is where you want to go. You know, it's not a race where I think you've got truly vulnerable favorites. I think the horses that are going to take the money deserve to take the money and figure in here. I think the most likely winner of the race, he's not my pick, but I think the most likely winner of the race is World Approval. We're going to take a look at his seasonal debut. This was in the Turf Classic, a state-bred restricted race down at Tampa Bay Downs, and he's already taken over at this point. He's the big gray out there. He just does things very, very professionally. This is the kind of horse that I think is easy to root for, because anyone that's familiar with how he came along as a 3-year-old, he was very, very goofy, very green, you know, popping back to his left lead all over the place. I think Mark Caskey's done a very, very good job with this horse. They have slowly turned him into just a very, very professional horse. Last year, they tried to stretch him out to those longer distances, and he had beautiful pace setups in some of them. And he just doesn't want to go that far. I mean, a mile and a half is pushing it for him. I think this mile and 16th may even be a hair short, but I do think he's that true, like 9 furlong type of horse. His beautiful tactical speed, and I think that's going to go a long way in this race here today, because the pace dynamic is the interesting sort of way to look at this. If you want to try to poke a hole in a horse like Projected, he won't be coming from far out of it, but he's going to be coming from probably 3 or 4 lengths out, mid-pack throughout. There's not a lot of confirmed early speed in here, which leads us to my live long shot in this race, and that's Security Risk down on the inside. Security Risk is an interesting horse, a late developing horse for Shug McGahee. It seems like the ideal way to ride him is to send him out of there, let him go, and try to, I don't want to say spread eagle the field, but let him use his speed to his advantage. It's going to be very interesting to see what Florent Giroux does in this spot, because I think you have to send him. I don't think you want to be trying to kick with World Approval or Projected or the horse that I have actually picked in this race, and that's Black Type. But I do think Security Risk is a legitimate threat tomorrow afternoon as far as a gate to wire chance in the Dixie. Let's take a look at the field one more time, fellas, if we could. 1 through 10. The 1, Security Risk, is 12-1 in my value line. The 2 is World Approval, 3-1. The 3 is Top of Mind, 49-1. Projected, 7-2. One Mean Man, 49-1. Talk Show Man, 99-1. Black Type, 4-1. Catapult, 13-1. Conquest Typhoon, 16-1, and Ring Weekend coming back to the East Coast for Grand Motion, 12-1. There you have it. 4 races over the next 2 days. 2 of them this afternoon here on Friday the 19th. 2 of them tomorrow afternoon, culminating in the Preakness. We will find out if Always Dreaming can successfully obtain the 2nd jewel in North America's Triple Crown, or in the United States Triple Crown, I shouldn't say North America. Obviously, the Canadian Triple Crown is not that far away. The Queen's Plate, I believe, is at the beginning of July. So a really fun weekend. It's going to be exciting. You've got multi-race wagers all over the joint, top to bottom, Friday and Saturday. You've got big guaranteed pools in the Pick 5, 12% takeout. You've got Pick 4 videos up here on drf.com, video.drf.com. Illman and I have you for the Friday Pick 4. Illman and Beer have the Saturday Pick 4, culminating in the Preakness Stakes. We'll find out. Again, if Always Dreaming can get through, if Classic Empire can right the ship, and as our boys in the back, Craig and AJ, maybe this is the time that Classic Empire strikes back. Maybe we're 2 weeks too early with the little graphic there for Classic Empire. Or, selfishly, maybe Cloud Computing can get it done and I can put a couple bucks in my pocket for Chad and Javier. Again, if you've watched this thing live, live.drf.com, livestream.com, thank you for doing so. Social media, Facebook and Twitter, always good to have you on there as well. If you check it out podcast version, whether it is with audio or with video, or both, however you want to look at it. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, plenty of ways for you to find this show. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. We will find out if Always Dreaming can get the job done. And by the way, the new handicapping show, the new weekend show that we have here on the Racing Forum on video.drf.com, it's called Out of the Gate. If you haven't been paying attention to it, you should probably start paying attention to it now. We have all sorts of good stuff. We go over a bunch of different races. We have a bunch of different contributors, whether it's Nicole Russo, Jonathan Kinchin, Craig Milkowski, you name it. They come along and handicap with myself, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, all sorts of good stuff. And you know what? Going forward here on this show, Instead of throwing it to the Friday Formulator race today, we're going to throw it right in to Out of the Gate. So without further ado, the Preakness edition of Out of the Gate. Best of luck this week. We'll talk again next Friday.